Welcome to another episode of the Ohio Lodge of Research podcast, OLR Connections. In this episode, we sit down with Chad Kopenski, the newly elected Worshipful Master of the Ohio Lodge of Research, to learn what his plans are for the upcoming year, see what his perspective is on education in Ohio and in Masonry in general. And of course, with Brother Kopenski, we know there will be a few other side notes and sidetracks as well. The Brothers of the Ohio Lodge of Research have wisely elected you as their next master. What are you going to do? What are you going to bring to the Ohio Lodge of Research this year? That's
I
our
think
discussion for today.
that sounds lovely. I think, we ought to at least pause for a second, saying, what am I going to do? I think we should ask them, do they know what they've gotten themselves into? I think that's the thing they need to. Now, granted, I mean, I'm not sure are they sure they want to do this? That's all I'm saying.
Well, that maybe that's a different question, right? You have been the president of the Midwest Conference on Masonic Education.
Yep.
You
I
have
went
been
through
the
that
chair
line.
of
Yep.
the Grand Lodge Committee on Education.
Yep.
You have been a regent and one of, well, let's call it the creator of the Royal Schofield Society. Creators, one of, I should say.
I'll
Um,
take that. Yep.
plus, I'm sure many others that I am not listing, but those are three biggies. Why the Ohio Lodge of Research? What are we going to do different?
How I joined the Ohio Lodge of Research, and I may have told this story previously, is that I think I was doing like a vanity search on my name, or I was looking for something, and I came across the old OLR website, and it had me listed as the junior deacon, and thought to myself, I don't remember going to any of. Like, I just didn't know what was odd to see my name there, but serving as master of the poet was a gentleman named Chad Simpson. And so I called him and said, "Oh yeah, we sometimes we like to just put people in as officers, hoping that they're going to join." I'm like, oh, okay. So I went to a meeting and I joined, and then I started doing other things. And then years later, I got a little bit more active in the Lodge of Research, and no, I enjoy it. So yeah, I came in under weird circumstances, but I think when I first joined it, it was a pretty small insular group that I think um, I don't know how to describe it because, but I think that they were pretty inwardly focused, for lack of a better word. I think that's maybe the better way to describe that. And I think when I came back to the Lodge of Research, which I don't know when that was, um, I would say that there was a much different focus. Part of it was social. A lot of people that I gotten to know through RSS or through the Ed committee had started to join there and started to become more active and more involved. But also, um, I think the OLR in itself, and I'll give you credit on this, even though I really hate saying nice things about you, but I think you and Alex and Taylor and Charlie, I think there was a push to make it a little bit more outwardly focused, or at least,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess making research more active, making it more um not even proactive, but just, I guess, yeah, more of an outward focus. Let's go here, let's try this, let's look at these things, let's see how these things connect. And whether it was forging connections with William Ware, or Rubicon, or somebody else, or whether it was going to the Midwest Conference or going to the different conventions, whether it was holding the virtual meetings, there was that ethos that I think started a long time ago, back with the uh, the traveling Masonic roadshows, of bringing Masonic education to people where they're at. And I think that there was a focus towards that, and I thoroughly believe in that, and I think that's it. I think it was a phenomenal turn for the Lodge of Research. And I think that was something that has been a turning point in the last few years. So.
No, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, that was kind of my hope when I sat down with Bob Stakoff and Charlie, and we got Taylor involved, and all the guys you mentioned. That we create an organization that is helping people. It's again, I don't have the words for it either, but bringing education to the individuals rather than just being this pedestal upon which they look. What is fascinating about the group we have now, I think, is everybody is interested that you are interested in that topic. There is this support, there is this motivation to keep people moving. And I think that, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be interested in everything. You just have to be supportive. And that's, I hope, a community that we have created.
The roundtable discussions that we started to have with the Ohio Lodge of Research, it's one of those like simple, brilliant things. Like why have we not been doing this previously? But those conversations have been so much fun for exactly the point that you're saying. Ellie says something and all of a sudden, 3 people spark off. Have you talked about this? You do about this? Or that's really cool. Tell me more about this. And it helps guys stay excited. It helps move them forward. And there isn't that competition to be the smartest guy in the room, because you can't be the smartest guy in the room. You can be supportive and hopefully, go from there. So I guess sort of the question that I've been pondering a lot recently is this idea of how do we get to why? That as brethren, we all kind of have questions about things, but how do we get brethren to the point where they actually ask, well, why does this take place? Why does this happen? And then how do we get that impulse of why to actually spark them to move forward, to grab a book, to ask a question, to reach out to wherever? So how do we get guys to why? Because I think in Masonry, very often we tend to just accept, authority. But once we get a brother to why, once we get him to start moving forward, there's a whole different paths in Masonry, and there's a whole different world that is opened unto you. And sort of like we spoke about those round tables where people are just saying, well, here's where I am, here's what I'm looking at. That is in one way how we kind of get people to why, because they're asking the questions and somebody isn't just saying, oh, well, that's dumb, or don't worry about that, or here's the answer. Instead, what they're saying is, oh, I never thought about that question. Let me tell you this source, or let me tell you where you can look at this, or have you thought about it this way? And so in a very real way, in a very tangible and also a very, tactile way, those roundtables are getting brethren to why, and then the jump off point beyond. And that's one way of doing it. There's got to be others.
I think part of it is there's a group that has gotten to know each other well enough that we know, how far you can push people, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're not going to tell someone to do something that's so far out of their comfort zone that they're going to be, that it's not going to work for them.
Right.
So, but I think Simpson did this to you a lot, which is knows where that line is and pushes you right to the edge of it because you would never get there on your own. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he would volunteer me for stuff. He did a lot for me of, he would call me to make me angry about something, and then listen to me rant or just get me worked up. And it would get me to the point that, he probably wanted me to get to, or at least get me to realize something he wanted me to realize. But it just was either more efficient or this. I have friends now who call me with a question just because they know that it's going to be 20 minutes of me trying to like verbalize an answer for them, or they call me and leave the question on my voicemail, knowing I'm going to get back to them in a day after, having, crunched it for that last day.
Oh yeah, that's one of the best reasons to have a conversation with Chad Kopenski is that his brain will never let go of it. And it might be a week later, you'll get a message or a phone call. Hey, I was thinking about. Yep.
Yeah. I get so. But but I'll be honest, it was those kind of conversations that led me to this idea, um, for the year. And it's kind of a loose theme, but really, and I don't know necessarily what I want that to look like, other than, um, yeah, I guess understanding or embracing that journey. How do we inspire it? How do we support it? How do we keep it going? One of the things that I think has come from my time, both in RSS, but mostly with the Midwest Conference, is recognizing, the recognizing those meaningful connections that are absolutely out there. And, um, I one of the nice things about the Midwest Conference is I've been able to speak to counterparts in different jurisdictions, and you find out what they're working on, what their concerns are, maybe what their ideas are, and recognizing that good ideas come from rooms that you're not in. And good ideas come from rooms you're not in, from people you might not necessarily agree with. And good ideas come from rooms that you're not necessarily in, from people you don't necessarily agree with, who are nowhere near the same, generation or ethnicity or location that you are. And that's okay. The problem is, because you're not in that room, you may not know that idea is being developed. And so the more that we can do to connect with those entities, I think benefits us all, whether that is in Ohio, the Royal Scofield Society, or, the Thomas Five-ish Riddick Society in Missouri. We have the chapter council of research. We have the different valleys that are research valleys. The Firelands does some really nice work as a Scottish Rite Valley. I'm equidistant from like Columbus, Gallipolis, and Cambridge, and I probably should make connections there at some point. Prince Hall, they have their way of doing education and research is for research, I don't know. Education is a little bit differently focused, but I mean, I think it's important that we speak and connect. So if there's a way that we can get them all together, and so I have this really crazy idea. I have no idea if it's going to work, but I'd rather let's sort of die trying. I'm kind of gleefully, or jokingly, calling it the gathering of the clans. I think we just need an event where we get, much like the Midwest Conference, or we just get representatives of those lodges of research or entities of research. We get them in a room, either virtually or in person. It can be for presenting of papers or exploring a topic, but again, getting away from us being insular as a lodge of research, and actively seeking, fostering, strengthening those meaningful connections between those different groups, and that being a priority for us. I think, and sometimes you just have to set an idea and then see what you need to make it happen. And if I fail in doing a gathering of the clans, okay, but at least maybe the guy after me, maybe we can make it, maybe we can get a little bit farther. Anything so, but I think, yeah, anything we can do, having an event where we can get representatives of those people in a room, to speak. So
I'm very intrigued by that. I'm kind of curious to see how that plays out, and who we can get involved, because as this could become huge, and it could become overwhelming. And I at some point, I think I don't have it in front of me, but you made the comment that it'll be as big as it needs to be.
yeah,
And so I'm very curious to see who we can get involved, and who, how that plays out. And you're shooting for that in March?
I am. I'm looking at that to be like right around March 15th or so. So, and I had to set a goal. Otherwise, I'd never hit it. But that also means that I need to start conceiving of what that's going to be, and you're right. It could be as big or as small as it needs to be. And I mean, listen, there is nothing that I can't make more complex and more convoluted than it needs to be. Ask my wife; she'll
I
tell
was
you.
gonna say, I have a feeling your wife has told you that
Yeah,
before.
there's nothing that I can't make more difficult. But with this, I don't think I keep going back to something I've said for years. That traveling wheelbarrow ideas of masonry. Put enough cool people in a room, and something cool will happen. And we've seen that time and time again. If you make that flimsy excuse for people to get together, they'll find those ways to connect. We just need to make it meaningful and need to make it. We need to provide that opportunity. Again, provide that opportunity for those meaningful connections to happen. That's 3 per hour, and then so that can happen, and that we can move forward. And if it works, great. And if it ends up being something that we repeat in subsequent years and gets bigger and bigger and bigger, great. But I'm not going to shoot for 100,000 people there the first year. I think I just want to see what we can do.
Yeah.
And make it meaningful, make it useful, make it worthwhile, and then see where we can take it. So,
well, I had kind of feeding off of your gathering of the clans. I had a thought. I was talking to Don Cruz the other day, and we were, as happens with Don Cruz, the conversation can go many different directions. I could say the same of you or myself, but we were kind of talking about this struggle that the Ohio Lodge of Research has, is that we are a statewide organization, and getting everybody together in one place for a meeting is a very difficult thing to do. And I just kind of off the top of my head, I threw out this idea of perhaps we should support gatherings of the OLR. In other words, not official meetings, just, hey, this event is going on. I'm going to go. Some other brothers of the OLR are going to go. Anybody who wants to join us, come on out. And so it gives us an excuse to get a group of guys together. And more importantly, probably, it gives us an opportunity to support the other educational endeavors going on in the state, whether it be an RSS masterpiece. Hey, few of us are going to go. Anybody that wants to join, here's the date, here's the time. Not an official meeting, just an opportunity. Or, Midwest Conference, or, it can, again, they can be as big or as small. And the beauty of those is they don't require any planning on our part. It's literally just send out a message to the membership. So
I love that idea of, it's not the big formal thing. It just is, guys, we know that the 8th district is having their day of education. We're all going to go, and then we're all going to go to lunch. Or
exactly.
we know that one of us is speaking at a table lodge in Canton, or one of us is going to be doing, something somewhere.
Yeah. Or the one I would love to see is, hey, guys, I just heard about this LEO that's given this great presentation at his lodge. Let's show up.
You know how frightening that would be? Think about that as if you're like a newly minted LEO, and all of a sudden, like 6 people show up with Ohio Lodge of Research. You're going to feel like it's a doctoral dissertation, while you're sitting there.
It doesn't have to, though, but yeah.
It doesn't have to be. Well, and let's be
First
honest.
few times I get it, it would, yeah.
Well, and let's be honest. Usually, the people from the Ohio Lodge of Research are usually the biggest fans of whoever is presenting.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
usually, they're the ones who are there. Like, yep, totally. Like, go do. Like,
yeah.
They know what it's all about. So,
yep.
But I think it's weird though, because I was doing my calendar for this thing, and there's, I don't know, not that it was difficult to plan the year. It was more like, oh, so much of this just is already kind of planned. Like it's already, there's a structure there. It used to be that you had to plan for a meeting in one of like each of the different quadrants in one center. That's sort of, but now it's, oh no, there's these months where we do these virtual meetings, and these where we do this, and now we're doing this. And so it was much easier just to kind of plan a year. Now it's finding that people to speak at those virtual meetings, or whatever they were going to do for the gathering of the clans, or for Med Talks 2, which is coming up in September. Like now it's the actual planning, but those things, again, I guess I'm not worried about them yet. So,
So you just mentioned it. You are planning on doing Med Talks again?
Yeah, I told East Palestine Lodge that they're doing it. I don't know if I've ever officially asked them.
So how are you planning on changing it, or what's going to be the same, or what what's the plan, or have you thought that far out yet?
What I liked about what you did is that, I mean, you gave a strict time frame, but it wasn't necessarily, and you also had an overly uh, like generic theme, like a general theme. Um, I That's something that I really liked. I also really appreciated that it was not the typical voices, right? Granted, you heard me and you spoke. I think, I mean, there are people who we have heard from in the past, but there was also voices we haven't heard, and I think that that's vital. Um, I think so many of us are so afraid to actually get up and do a presentation because we don't think we have anything to say. But I think the nice thing about that 15-minute time frame is anybody can speak for 15 minutes, and even just getting up and saying, here's what I think, here's what I have so far. Um, it's not that there isn't pressure, but that it's a different format. It's a different way of presenting things that I think takes some of the pressure off, and that you don't have to be the expert. You just have to be somebody willing to get up and say, just to draw a line in the sand. Here's what I think, and here's why I think it. And you didn't allow discussion afterwards because you were awful. But there's something beneficial to that. I thought so. Um, so I have
Yeah,
an
I,
answer.
I was actually going to ask if you were going to change and allow questions, because yeah, that was my idea, was 20 minutes and no question and answer. But the idea was is there's time throughout the day that if somebody struck a nerve, you can go have a conversation with them. So it wasn't like we were trying to avoid question and answer. It was
No.
the public aspect of it, if you will. So
Well, and what always happens,
it had some advantages, it had some disadvantages. I think it was disliked by more than others. So
because we want to talk.
I
But I
won't
think,
be offended if you change it. Yeah.
well, but I also think that what happens is, I mean, but you're right. I mean, what also can very easily happen is there's two people having a conversation, and the rest of us are like, okay, we want to, so I think there's a way to limit that.
I'm assuming you still have to figure out what the presentations are.
And one of the things I want to continue is I love that the High Lodge of Research is embracing the online meetings. In the past, there were 5 meetings a year, right? One in each quadrant of the state and one in the center, and that was really kind of it. And they were in person, and people would do like it just. But now there's this. Uh, we do have these meetings that we are doing virtually, and we set them up where one is like a presentation for discussion, and another one is just sort of a roundtable. We have something that we're going to discuss, and again, it's just a different way of brethren to connect in different ways. It's that opportunity. Um,
It's fine. My last question for you was going to be, you've got a lot planned, a lot of ideas. If it all goes to crap and half these things don't happen, what's the one thing that is absolutely imperative that you think has to happen this year to be a successful year?
that's the wrong question to ask me because you know what I'm going to say. I mean, you know
It's like
exactly.
your favorite child, isn't it?
Well, the truth is, um, it is that the work continues, that those meaningful connections are made. That if we, I'm not sitting here going, we need to get 75 more members. No, I I'm thinking we need to have meaningful, useful meetings. We need to have um, what we started in terms of creating that cohort of people who get together to gather and support each other as they move forward in their research. That needs to continue and be fostered. That's a garden that needs to be watered. So if I can have some events over the course of the year, if I can do some things over the course of the year, whether it's virtual, it's in person, it's planned or unplanned, if at the end of this year I can look back and say, you know what, we gathered, we supported each other, we moved each other forward in our research, in our learning, yeah, I'm okay. I'd like to do more. I'd like to, I would like to, whatever boundaries there are, I'd like to push them a little bit further. But you're right, it could all go to crap tomorrow. But if the work continues in the way that it has continued, I'll be happy.